video, guys. Like I said, let's get those likes up, and if we can go ahead and get $100 in support, I will go ahead and play the BB files. I'll give you guys about, well, what time are we at? The 2-hour mark. So we can go ahead and reach that goal by 2 hours. I'll go ahead and I'll run the BB files. All right, let's keep it going.
For a weapon, well, you'd think Iran would have used it by now, wouldn't you? I mean, we're roughly 4 full weeks into the latest war in the Middle East, and although the Islamic Republic still rules over Tehran, it's taken a hell of a beating. An entire generation of Iranian leaders has been killed off by foreign air power, and a fair share of their replacements have been wiped out too. Iran has managed to close the Strait of Hormuz, has caused chaos across the Middle East, and it's taken the global energy market hostage. But in return, Iran has suffered devastation across the whole of society. But on the opposite side of the Arabian Peninsula, Tehran has one critical ally that it can still rely upon: the powerful Houthi rebel organization in the nation of Yemen. Positioned along one of the most important shipping routes in the world, and armed with all the drones and missiles that a decade of Iranian support could provide, the Houthis have the potential to turn this entire conflict on its axis. They aren't Iran's secret weapon, because Iran lacks the means to control them, but they've got their own reasons to want a piece of the action. The United States, Israel, and the nations of the Persian Gulf are watching the Houthis closely, reassured by their decision not to enter the war until now. But there's a very real chance that the Houthis don't intend to sit this war out. Instead, they may be waiting for the perfect moment to enter the conflict and cause maximum devastation when they arrive. Prosperity unguarded. Officially known by the name Ansar Allah, Yemen's Houthi rebels have enjoyed Iran's patronage since the mid-2010s, when they exploded to prominence and seized Yemen's capital city. Today, the Houthis control most of the territory of western Yemen, where the vast majority of the country's population resides.
Yeah, I ain't gonna lie. Like, Yemen is going like through a 3-way proxy war. There's a group that's funded by the Saudi Arabia. There's a group that's funded by the UAE, and it's like a 3-way proxy war going on in Yemen for some crazy reason that Iran is also joined in on through their proxy, the Houthis, that are, well, I would say, somewhat winning, somewhat.
The territory of western Yemen, where the vast majority of the country's population resides. Fundamentally opposed to the nation of Israel, as well as the United States, the Houthis engaged in what they described as a solidarity campaign during Israel's war in Gaza and its prior conflicts with Iran and other pro-Iran proxy forces. Most prominently, they've launched a long string of attacks against maritime trade vessels on the Red Sea, a critical waterway that handles more than 1/10 of the global sea trade and happens to brush up against the Houthi-controlled coast of Yemen. Now, although the Houthis and Iran enjoy a very close relationship, their connection requires a bit of nuance to understand properly. Unlike the loose coalition of militia groups that Iran can rely on in Iraq or the Lebanon-based Hezbollah organization, the Houthis aren't simply a weapon that Iran can point and shoot at its enemies. The Houthi rebels oversee their own proto-state in western Yemen, their own religious and ideological movement, their own state-sized economy, and more. They have their own ambitions, their own geopolitical goals, and their own incentive structure to motivate their decisions. They existed long before their partnership with the Iranian regime, and they clearly intend to exist for a very long time afterward. They're generally in alignment with Iran, but they aren't a true proxy force. Instead, they're somewhere between a proxy and a partner. Of course, they're also a proxy-ish partner that Iran would like to ensure is well-armed, well-trained, and capable of causing havoc in the Middle East. The true size and limitation.
For moments just like this, to where they need to be able to close down another waterway, another travel waterway that, well, we can kind of use to get out of the, I would say, the economic strain that them closing the Strait of Hormuz has induced on us. So, yeah. And this is what the Houthis there are for. And the thing is, I was kind of seeing them bringing these guys into the fight just because I'm like, you know what? As soon as these guys start trying to go through the Red Sea, the Houthis are going to be there to shoot all types of rockets. They're going to shoot drones, and they're just going to be there to just cause straight havoc and to make things even harder on us.
Of the Houthi arsenal are unknown to most of the world, largely because they're a group that Israeli, American, and other global intelligence mostly dismissed as irrelevant until the world was caught off guard by their campaign in the Red Sea. That said, the group is known to possess multiple types of long-range ballistic missiles, mostly based on equivalent designs from Iran, as well as a smaller but equally potent arsenal of cruise missiles. Like other groups that work alongside Iran, the Houthis are experts in the use of modern one-way attack drones, and they also possess a growing arsenal of sea drones. Even more challenging for their foreign adversaries, the Houthis have their own internal production capacity, meaning that they can build more missiles and drones of their own. Even American military leaders have praised the Houthis for their innovation as weapons developers and their resilience as a fighting force despite years of US and Israeli airstrikes.
And I mean, no, honestly, the resilience of the Houthis is absolutely insane. Like, no matter how much we bomb them, like take out leadership, all that good stuff, damn near blow up whole apartment complexes just to get a couple of them. We just can't stop them. Like, we just cannot remove these guys off the face of the earth. And I mean, I don't think that's really our goal. Our goal is to pretty much reduce their power. But the problem is we've tried doing that and they're still present to be a problem. Even when we stopped them from being pirates, like that took a lot for us to do. It took a lot. And we were trying to get rid of the Houthis even then, and that didn't work. We were just happy that we just got them out of the Red Sea. But we didn't defeat the Houthis. We just left them alone and said, all right, F it. As long as you're no longer in the Red Sea, we don't care. We ain't going to just keep on trying to bomb you guys and y'all won't stop. So, yeah, they are a very persistent group, very persistent. And like I said, I think they hate Israel the most. And the only reason why I say that is because they symbolically shoot missiles at them, knowing damn well it ain't going to reach. Like, wild. They are wild people.
That's a major problem for the rest of the world, because even in ordinary times, the Houthis are one of those rare non-state actors who can cause chaos far beyond their own territory. During the Israel-Hamas war, Houthi strikes on Red Sea shipping forced global trade traffic to avoid the waterway almost completely, forcing ships to undertake a much longer voyage around the entire African continent. According to global trade experts, the Houthi campaign impacted a total of over $1 trillion worth of maritime.
Oh, guys, I got about 13 of you guys on the horizontal live, man. Do me a favor and double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Let's make sure to get those likes up to get more people in on the conversation. Appreciate the support. And on the horizontal, make sure you guys go in and smash that like button.
Traffic, including many tens of billions of losses, damage to dozens of ships, the sinking or hijacking of half a dozen more, and the costs of a multinational, sustained air and sea campaign. So take that uncomfortably recent bit of Houthi history and imagine the implications of a similar campaign in a far less stable moment for the Middle East. The war between Iran, Israel, the United States, and anybody else Iran happens to shoot at is a war that's weaponized the entire global economy. Iranian attacks are focused on oil refineries, liquefied natural gas processing hubs, extraction operations, and other targets that have caused havoc across global energy markets. Iran has created such danger in the Strait of Hormuz that it's too risky and too expensive for ships to try and cross, meaning that a sea lane that handles about 40% of the world's seaborne crude oil and a fifth of its LNG has been taken out of the global market indefinitely. World nations are preparing for shortages to last for months or even years, while global industry leaders are signaling that they expect energy prices to keep on rising. The United States and its allies are doing their best to mitigate the economic impact and downplay that impact when it can't be mitigated, but the damage to the global economy is only getting worse. Iran has proved its ability to strike essential energy facilities despite the presence of Western air defenses, and those strikes come with an implicit threat that Iran can escalate further. What all of this means for the Houthis is that the world is already dealing with an extremely vulnerable, extremely unstable trade environment. As the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf are taken out of action,
as Iran just exposed. But all right, guys, like I said, let's make sure to like the video. You guys on Rumble, make sure to like the video as well. I know you guys be lacking on that one. Oh, yeah, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you're feeling the content. We do this every night.
Only rises everywhere else. Other sea lanes become even more important, and the costs of disruption in another spot wouldn't just add to the world's headaches, but compound the entire problem. That, of course, is where the Houthis come in. An outside faction with the military capability, the geopolitical allegiance, and the proven will to take action against one of the most important trade routes on the planet. So with all of that in mind, we're going to focus our attention on two key questions. Why would the Houthis want to put themselves at risk by joining the conflict, and why haven't they already taken action? Now, before we get into those questions, though, I'd like to take a moment to discuss Fronts.co, which is our team's premium website, written news outlet, and one-stop shop for global conflict analysis. Subscribe if you like what you see. And now let's get back to the Houthi rebels. The Houthi case. Say what you will about Iran's surprising success in this conflict, their ability to blockade access to the Persian Gulf, their ability to hit well-defended regional infrastructure, or their ability to keep the Iranian regime intact despite round after round of decapitation strikes. But as impactful as Iran's wartime strategy has been, it's impossible to ignore the other side of the equation. For Iran, its leadership, its military, and its ordinary people, this conflict has sucked. Whatever successes Iran has achieved, it's done from the butt end of a vast military imbalance with the US and Israel. Iran has been bombarded relentlessly, and it's witnessed the deaths of far too many innocent civilians. A couple of weeks ago, strikes on Iranian oil infrastructure were so devastating that cities experienced.
This is why they got to play this asymmetric warfare, because they can't beat us up top. The only thing they can really do is make things bad in the region by driving up oil prices and by destroying oil or energy infrastructure. And I mean, God forbid, but it sounds like they might start attacking water desalination centers in the region to start causing a water shortage or water. I'm be real with you. Probably a famine. Yeah, they actually might cause a famine in the Middle East due to the destruction of these water desalination centers and the stoppage of the oil and petroleum through the Strait of Hormuz.
Experienced toxic black rain. So, given the destruction that Iran has experienced in this conflict, why would the Houthi rebels ever want to get involved? Well, unfortunately, for the rest of the Middle East, the Houthis are quite similar to Iran when it comes to the way they think about risk and reward. When a foreign adversary shows up in warplanes over Houthi territory, the group expects that their fighters, their loyal civilian supporters, and even parts of their leadership will be lost. Like Iran, Houthi doctrine prioritizes the survival of the wider organization in a way that dismisses some rather extraordinary costs as just the price of martyrdom. The Houthis made that very clear during their prior strikes against the Red Sea and Israel, continuing their campaign long after Israel and its allies had imposed severe costs upon Houthi forces. Just as important, the Houthis have specific reasons to be interested in taking.
Well, guys, make sure y'all double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Appreciate the support. Oh, and shout out to the guys here at Warfront. Make sure you guys follow them as well. They get pretty good analysis on what's going on. So shout out to Warfront.
Part in this conflict. For one thing, they've got a long-standing relationship with the Iranian regime at a moment when it seems as if the regime isn't just likely to survive, but to grow more hardline, more militaristic, and more dependent on the Revolutionary Guard Corps that has sustained the Houthis for years. Not only would that state of affairs be helpful for the Houthis, but the group hardly wants to make itself look bad by sitting on the sidelines during Iran's moment of truth. Not only that, but the Houthis have selfish incentives to take part. Even though their Red Sea campaign drew the outrage of world nations, it also legitimized the Houthis.
Nah, not the Houthis sitting on the side like, let me in, coach, let me in, bro. Look, don't you say they're giving you an ass whooping? Let me in, coach. It's like, whoa. That's like I said, that's the problem with the Houthis. Like they are a little too battle ready. They are way more extreme than I would. Like I said, bro, if you wanted to say who's more extreme, Hezbollah, Hamas, or the Houthis, I would give it to the Houthis every single time because they're just that radical of a group and they just don't care.
Houthis claim to power in Yemen, both the domestic audiences and the wider Middle East. The Houthis want to be recognized by the entire world as the sole sovereign rulers of Yemen, and when a group like the Houthis forces the world to bend to their will and gets away with it, their importance just isn't an easy one to deny. Right now, because of the sheer vulnerability of the global trade system.
Top ruling group in Yemen.
Houthis have the potential to make an impact on a scale that would be otherwise impossible. If they can close down the Red Sea at a moment when the rest of the world is relying on that shipping lane, just imagine what they could demand of the international community in exchange for opening the strait back up. But if that's the case for Houthi action, then we've also got to ask the opposing question. Why haven't the Houthis attacked already? Well, despite their willingness to accept heavy losses, it's true that the Houthis wouldn't want to welcome a battle where they'll just get their asses kicked. Their forces are diminished after prior rounds of airstrikes. They'll be dealing with a multinational maritime security mission in the Red Sea, and it's possible that Houthi leadership doesn't believe that it's ready for a fight like this. They've also been occupied by missions closer to home, trying to consolidate their control over Yemen after some recent upheaval in the last few months. But although there's a chance that the Houthis might believe an attack isn't worth the risk, their risk acceptance in prior rounds of conflict would suggest that this explanation is incomplete. Instead, the answer may come down to the Houthis' expectations around where this conflict will go next. As much as the Houthis could cause havoc across the globe if they took action now, they may believe that they can achieve even more by waiting for the conflict to play out a little while longer. Houthi leadership is entirely aware of the contrast case here. Hezbollah, a fighting faction that seems to have entered the conflict at the worst possible time. Hezbollah didn't react immediately when the war broke out, and it failed to maximize the value of what could have been a surprise attack. Instead, they launched a relatively small aerial attack against northern Israel and immediately drew the wrath of a full-scale Israeli response. That response now includes a ground invasion and possibly a long-term occupation of Lebanese land south of the Litani River, an area more than twice the size of the Gaza Strip where Hezbollah used to be at its very strongest. While our Warfronts team certainly can't claim to know what's going on inside the heads of Houthi leadership, we wouldn't be surprised to learn that the Houthis regard Hezbollah's action as an avoidable strategic blunder. From their vantage point across the Arabian Peninsula, the Houthis have already been rewarded for their strategic patience, and their situation just keeps getting better. Every day that this conflict continues is a day that global markets become more vulnerable to disruption. Right now, nations are still working through their existing supplies of oil, LNG, and other petrochemical products that would usually.
My bad, guys. My bad. Excuse my language, but I just updated what oil prices were looking like since he mentioned it. And bro, do you see what I'm seeing? Like, does this look like, something that we want to keep engaging in if oil prices are looking like that? And the national average for oil is pretty much at what, $4? Brent crude oil, bro. I think that was like at $109 like last time I checked, like a day ago. WTI is at $100, and these are the guys that usually stay at least like at 80, 70, but what? So yeah. No, this is what Iran wants, for oil prices to keep going up, the barrel, bro. They want this to hit 120. And at that point, we're going to have some real problems. And not only be paying more for gas, but you'll be paying more for your products that use petroleum, which is damn near all of them. And of course, for your food, because, fertilizer. So, yeah, this is why we want this war to end soon, because this is going to start leading to, well, what we like to call, or what I just made up of, wartime inflation. We want to deal with that.
Few days' time. And other right now, nations are still working through their existing.
Oh, make sure y'all double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Appreciate the support, man. But let's make sure you double tap that screen and subscribe to the channel to keep this going.
Supplies of oil, LNG, and other petrochemical products that would usually have been replenished in a few days' time. Wait another week or two, and nations will start dipping into their reserves, rationing supply, and otherwise trying to balance their situation until things go back to normal. As we've mentioned already, every day in which the Strait of Hormuz is blockaded is a day when the strategic importance of other trade routes will rise. For the Houthis, there's no reason to act now if they believe that the blockade will still be in place in a few weeks' time. Allow shortages to get worse, allow global panic to rise, and the Houthis will be able to achieve greater disruption with fewer strikes. Their missile and drone stockpiles are far from unlimited, and they do well to maximize the strategic value of each piece of hardware in their arsenal. If the Houthis happen to get lucky and the war wraps up before that time, then even better. They managed to sit out the conflict and avoid any real damage while arguing to their friends in Iran that they were trying to play their hand as effectively as possible. Then there's the military power that would come back in the Houthis' direction, where, again, their patience may yet be rewarded. Already, a U.S. carrier strike group that was meant to be stationed on the Red Sea, led by carrier Gerald R. Ford, was forced to return to port in the Mediterranean after an onboard fire, meaning that it's no longer available to punish the Houthis for an attack. Then there are America's regional allies. If the Houthis had tried to threaten, say, the Gulf states in the first few days of the conflict, then they would have encountered well-stocked air defenses and Western intelligence that was just waiting for new threats to pop up. Now air defense stockpiles appeared to be at risk of running critically low, and air defense systems have been repositioned to optimize for a defense against Iran when the Houthis would be attacking the Gulf states from the opposite direction. US and Israeli intelligence have their hands full tracking targets, identifying missile and drone launch points, and trying to figure out who's in charge in Tehran on a given day. And if the Houthis wait just a little while longer, their situation can improve even further. Saudi Arabia and the UAE, two of the states most vulnerable to Houthi attacks, are on the verge of joining the war against Iran. The Saudi and Emirati militaries are powerful, and they can deliver heavy damage to an adversary in an initial attack, but they've only got a limited ability to carry out a sustained air campaign, as the Houthis found out directly in the 2010s. If the Houthis had joined the conflict a couple of weeks ago with an attack on easy-to-hit oil infrastructure in the Emirates or in Saudi Arabia, then they would have run the risk that the US and Israel might have invited the Saudis and Emiratis to handle the Houthis directly with their support. But if the Houthis bide their time until the Gulf states enter the conflict against Iran, then they'll ensure that the Gulf states' first few days of military operations, when they're at their most effective, would be directed elsewhere. After that, any pivot to suddenly fight the Houthis would be clumsy at best, while the Houthis would have an even easier time attacking the Gulf states once their militaries are focused elsewhere. In short,
I want to know y'all thoughts on the whole General Ford thing, because a lot of people are suspecting that actually it was hit by an Iranian drone or missile, and they're lying, and they're pretty much saying that, oh no, it was just a laundry fire, guys. And I ain't gonna lie, even I called a little bit of bullshit. I'm like, hold on, a laundry fire on the USS Ford? And I mean, I know it's not the most technically advanced ship, but come on now, a laundry fire big enough to put it out of commission? Come on now. But hey, I know I could be wrong. I most likely am wrong on that one. It could just been a laundry fire for all we know. But it is a bit funny. I don't know. Well, what do you guys think?
there is a real argument for the Houthis to keep biding their time, targeting an entry to the conflict at the moment of maximum impact. Decisive blow. At the end of a conversation like this one question matters most of all. If the Houthi rebels did choose to get involved in the war in the Middle East, then just how bad could things get? We can't be all that specific. After all, the Houthis' relative impact will depend on all the other factors we've explained, from trade vulnerability when they strike to the military capacity that nations can spare to deal with them. But in broad strokes, suffice it to say that if the Houthis do make a well-timed entrance to the conflict, then the results for the entire Middle East could be catastrophic. Across the last decade, the Houthis have proved their ability to attack oil infrastructure across the Arabian Peninsula, particularly in Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. Those include vital oil and natural gas fields, refineries, ports, and pipelines, all of which the Houthis could choose to damage or attempt to destroy, depending on whether they'd like to send a message or deliver maximum harm. Specific targets include the Saudi port city of Yanbu on the Red Sea coast, where Riyadh has redirected most of its crude oil exports in a desperate attempt to ship off as much as possible, as quickly as possible, before the war gets any worse. Iran has already attacked the Yanbu refinery, indicating that Tehran and its allies are all too aware of the value of Yanbu to Saudi leaders. Or if the Houthis can't hit Yanbu directly, they can hit the cross-country pipeline that supplies it, 1,200 kilometers along a mostly undefended route capable of transferring 5 million barrels of oil per day. The Houthis are also well within range of targets in Bahrain, Qatar, Oman, Kuwait, and Iraq, where limited air defenses are already starting to struggle with the sheer volume of incoming projectiles. In particular, the Houthis could target Qatar's Ras Laffan LNG facility, where a full 1/5 of the world's natural gas is exported. Iran has already knocked out about 1/6 of Ras Laffan's capacity for the next several years, essentially disappearing about 3.5% of all global LNG from the market. But even after Qatar and its allies have beefed up Ras Laffan's defenses, the Houthis have the ability to target the refinery with greater capacity and from different angles than Iran can currently manage. Then there's the possibility of a Red Sea blockade, something that the Houthis have partially achieved already over the past couple of years. When a nation like Iran or a non-state actor like the Houthis tries to blockade a global waterway, they don't do it by using ships. They do it by manipulating risk and making a crossing so dangerous that maritime insurance won't cover ships when they make an attempt. No insurance generally means no ship crossings. And
that's a lot of money. Bro, that's one hell of an insurance claim a guy can make right there. And insurance companies are not just trying to take that risk. They're like, hell nah. We'll just wait for the strait to be reopened instead of you guys taking this risk. And if you want to go out there and take that risk, we're talking about, of course, you need insurance for the goods, insurance on the boat, and life insurance for anybody else that's on there.
Few ships that do try to run the blockade are at even greater risk of being targeted because they can't hide in a crowd. The Houthis can threaten the northern entrance to the Red Sea at the Suez Canal, but they can exert direct control over the Red Sea's southern entrance, the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. hit a few ships with missiles or sea drones, or even raiding attack parties on open water, and the Houthis can cause such a market panic that the Bab el-Mandeb becomes impossible. Also on the target list could be Egypt, American bases in nearby Djibouti, energy targets across the African Horn, or even Israel itself. Time its attacks just right, and the humble Houthi rebels of Yemen might have the power to end this conflict entirely. They would hardly be conquering Israel or the United States, but they wouldn't have to. Global trade, finance, energy, manufacturing, and other key sectors are already pushing themselves to the brink, trying to find a way to reconcile this war with their day-to-day business and working overtime to absorb losses as gently as possible. Close down the Red Sea, devastate Gulf installations in an attack from behind, and leaders from across global industry and world governments may decide they've simply had enough. Whether or not Jerusalem would react to these pressures by calling off.
All right, now let's get into this nice little short clip of, what's been going on lately. Well, around the world and how they've been taking it. Well, this war with Iran that we've initiated, but they're dealing with the fallout of it. Well, we're all dealing with the fallout of it globally, but let's get into how other countries are dealing with it.
The world was warned this could happen, and now it actually is. The Philippines just became the first country in the entire world to declare a state of emergency because of fuel shortages linked to the war in the Middle East. This is because a staggering 98% of the fuel that the Philippines imports needs to pass through the Gulf region. And it's not just them. The whole world is now facing its biggest restrictions on fuel since COVID. Slovenia just became the first EU state to begin fuel rationing, so you can now only buy 50 liters max of fuel per day. Meanwhile, the IEA has now advised their 32 member countries, which include the likes of Australia, Germany, Japan, France, and the UK, to implement various fuel-saving measures, including even lowering their highway speeds by 10 kilometers an hour. China have temporarily banned fuel exports to protect their domestic supplies. Australia are facing what's described as a national crisis, where hundreds of their petrol stations are running dry from panic buying and shortages. South Korea have begun considering work-from-home policies, and have also introduced price limits for fuel for the first time in decades, along with other countries like Croatia, Hungary, Brazil, and Thailand. Cuba are really struggling this week with numerous countrywide power cuts, only made worse by the fuel shortages. Japan will begin their biggest ever release of oil from their strategic reserves this week. And as for the United States, well, Trump was asked about the Strait of Hormuz, and he said this.
We don't need it. We have a lot of oil. We're the #1 producer anywhere in the world ×2.
Yeah, it's not too much confidence he's really giving us on, the urgency of opening up the Strait of Hormuz. But I mean, hey, at least he said that is not going to hurt us as much as the rest of the world. Just kind of effed up to say it, but hey, it is what it is. Man ain't wrong. All right, guys, let's get right into it. Let's get right back into it. And guys, if you want to go ahead and watch the BB files, let's make sure to support the stream. Now, let's get it going with CNN.
That they were going to.
Oh, and make sure to double tap that screen and like the video, guys. Appreciate the support, by the way.
Attack first. They were going to attack if we didn't do it. It was my